Hey there, 8th graders. Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, so have you ever stopped and wondered how scientists study things that are completely invisible to the naked eye? Or on the flip side, things that are so massive they actually boggle the mind? Well, today we're unpacking exactly how scientists study the unseeable using scientific models. We'll look at the inherent limits of these tools, and this is the really cool part, how recognizing those limits can offer some profound lessons for our own spiritual growth. Here is our quick roadmap for the journey today. We're going to breeze through 6 sections: seeing through a mirror, what are scientific models, strengths and limitations, models in the real world, the spiritual connection, and finally, education and morality. Let's get right into it. Starting off with section 1, seeing through a mirror, reflections of reality. So how exactly do we study things that are literally too massive to see all at once, or too microscopic to hold? Think about the entire solar system or a single tiny cell. The source material frames this whole puzzle using a brilliant illustration from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 12. It says, "Now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, then we shall see face to face." You see, the tools scientists use are exactly like those reflections. They show us a really crucial part of the picture, but, not the complete perfect reality. They guide us, for sure, but they definitely don't give us the whole story all at once. Moving right along to section 2, what are scientific models? Simplifying the complex. All right, so how do we actually solve that puzzle of the unseeable? Well, we use a scientific model. A model is basically just a stripped-down, simplified version of something that's way more complex. Scientists use them all the time to observe, explain, or predict how things work. How? By stripping away all the distracting details and making the impossible, well, manageable. It's essentially taking the unimaginable and turning it into something we can actually wrap our heads around. Now, scientists generally rely on 3 main types of models, totally depending on what they're studying. First up, we've got physical models. Think of a globe sitting in your classroom, something you can actually spin and touch. Second are mathematical models. These are the equations that predict how things will behave, like figuring out exactly how fast an apple falls to the ground. And third, conceptual models. These are your diagrams or flowcharts that map out an abstract idea or a process. So, whether a scientist needs to hold something physical, crunch an equation, or map out a diagram, they've got a specific model designed to help them grasp that reflection of reality. Which brings us to section 3, strengths and limitations, evaluating our tools. To think like a true scientist, we've got to acknowledge a kind of hard truth. While models are incredibly helpful, they are absolutely never perfectly accurate. I mean, a globe shows the shape of the Earth, right? But it definitely doesn't show the exact size or the real rocky texture of the mountains. So, to avoid being fooled by a model's limits, we must always stop and ask ourselves 2 golden questions. What does this show well, and what does it leave out? We really have to know what specific details the model highlights and what important reality it just entirely misses. Let's see this in action in section 4, models in the real world, examples in action.
Okay, let's apply those 2 golden questions to some scientific examples you've probably seen in class. Think about a classic solar system model. Its strength? Well, it perfectly shows planetary order and orbit shapes, but its limit? It completely distorts the scale. Actually, fun fact for you, if a classroom model were scaled accurately and the Earth was the size of a marble, the nearest star wouldn't even be in your school. It would literally be hundreds of miles away. Crazy, right? Next, think about a plastic cell model. Its strength is that it shows the organelles and basic structure beautifully. But what does it leave out? Well, real cells are incredibly dynamic, living, microscopic things, not chunks of hard plastic. Finally, consider a weather map. The strength is obvious. It helps us prepare for severe weather. But the limitation is that these computer models are based on input data, and if that data is even slightly off, the prediction won't be fully accurate. Highly useful, but definitely not flawless.
All right, shifting gears a bit to section 5, the spiritual connection, humility and discernment. The source material draws a really fascinating parallel here. You see, in science, we practice scientific humility, knowing that models are just tools with missing pieces. Similarly, the curriculum encourages us to practice spiritual humility. It asks us to have the humility to realize that we only see a tiny fraction of life's massive picture right now. We simply don't have all the answers. But here's the truly beautiful part. Even though we only see a reflection right now, with wisdom and spiritual discernment, we can still learn, we can navigate our lives, and we can still grow. And that leads us perfectly into our final section, section 6, education and morality, the heroesmartacademy philosophy. The curriculum points out that keeping a spiritually minded focus doesn't just help us understand our scientific limits. It's actually designed to bring us profound peace.
Referring to Romans 8, 6, and 7, the idea presented is that when we evaluate the world with both our intellect and our spirit, we aren't shaken when human models fail us, or when we don't have every single answer. We maintain a profound, grounded peace of mind.
This brings us right to the core philosophy of the Hero Smart Academy Godly Learners series. Education without morality will hurt. The curriculum intertwines biblical morality with education for a very, very practical reason. It essentially asks, what is the point of being incredibly smart if that knowledge is used to make immoral choices that end up hurting ourselves and others? A brilliant scientist who uses their knowledge to cause harm is, well, it's a tragedy. True education, the source argues, absolutely must always be paired with spiritual wisdom.
So I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder as you continue your studies today. If our absolute best scientific models are just reflections, how will you use both your hard-earned education and your deep spiritual discernment to see the world just a little more clearly today? How will you use your knowledge and wisdom to make choices that bring peace instead of hurt? Something to think about. Thanks so much for exploring these massive ideas with me, and I'll see you in the next explainer.